this might be the best way to play Red Dragon Archfiend.
Subscribe.
I'm on a mission to make history with Red Dragon Archfiend. The deck in the entirety of its existence has literally one regional top to its name from all the way back in 2024, and 0 tier 3 event tops. It's my goal to change that in the name of the Crimson King. UK Nationals is now less than 2 months away, and in preparation I've been labbing up all of the different builds for Red Dragon Archfiend to figure out the most competitive list I can take to the tournament with the Blazing Dominion support. We started off with pure Red Dragon Archfiend and recognized it still has some major issues making it unplayable at a competitive level. We then moved on to Centurion, which is much better, but still kinda poopy when it comes to going second in any capacity. Next, I cooked up an Elf Note variant, which so far is probably the most competitively viable variant, but the response to that build was, unsurprising, let's say. Red Dragon Archfiend is a popular anime deck, so its fan base primarily consists of anime purists, casuals, and locals aura farmers. The deck has never really been competitive enough to attract anyone outside of that, so understandably people got mad when they seen a list that wasn't prioritizing the Red Dragon Archfiend engine in its entirety. I have nothing against anyone playing a deck the way they want to play it, but you need to understand this series is about competitive success. We're exploring all the different ways to incorporate the deck in a competitive setting, which naturally will come at the cost of some of the deck's identity. That's usually just how competitive Yu-Gi-Oh works, man. You gotta stop being a baby about it. Anyway, today we're looking at a build cooked up primarily by the Red Dragon Archfiend Discord, believed to be the best way to play the deck going forward, and that's Albaz Red Dragon Archfiend.
Albaz.
Okay, now before we get into any combos or example gameplay or anything, let's start with the deck list. This variant is essentially building upon pure Red Dragon Archfiend. It doesn't seek to solve any of the issues completely, it's instead focusing on your general card quality and making your deck overall just better into all of the issues. Let me show you and I'll explain as I go. Starting off, we have 3 copies of the Power Vice Dragon, 3 copies of our good old Boner, 2 copies of Soul, and 2 copies of Crimson Gaia. That's 10 of our pure Red Dragon Archfiend starters, alongside the 5 bricks that we all know and love: Vision, Darkness, Synchron, Crimson Call, and the Rumbling. The same lineup of bricks that we have in just regular pure Red Dragon Archfiend. For the Albaz engine, however, we have 3 copies of Fallen of the White Dragon, and 1 copy of Incredible Ecclesia. We then have our 1 copy of the Fallen and the Virtuous, which is like half the payoff of playing this engine. The entire premise here is that it's adding 0 bricks to the deck. We have 4 starters and 1 piece of strong non-engine. All 4 of these cards can be a full Red Dragon Archfiend combo on normal summon, but Fallen of the White Dragon can special summon itself from hand, allowing it to therefore extend any of your Red Dragon Archfiend starters. Special summoning Albaz from hand puts an Albion from extra deck to graveyard for cost, meaning regardless of whether you get interrupted or completely stopped, in the end phase, you're going to have guaranteed access to the Fallen and the Virtuous. So unlike Centurion, it's not allowing you to play through Nibiru, for example. It's instead giving you additional interruptions if you were to get Nibiru'd. For example, we would have the Rumbling and the Fallen and the Virtuous, which is better than just Rumbling. The entire branded engine is, of course, light and or dark, so having the extra starters in your deck allows you to cut down on your copies of Soul Resonator and play something like Dominus Spark a lot more comfortably. Incredible Ecclesia is probably one of the best cards in the deck going second because it allows you to get to the Crimson King without locking yourself to level 8s like Fallen of the White Dragon will. But if you bump up the numbers of Ecclesia in your deck, you then have a conflict with Dominus Impulse, and we don't really like that. I think we prioritize the Impulse here and we only play the 1 Ecclesia, unless we're on a budget, I guess. Now altogether here, there are 14 starters in the deck. Typically, I don't want to go under 15, but it's a bit more acceptable here because the next package I'm about to show you acts as Going First extension, and that is a small Cool Tune package with 3 Synchro Overtake, 1 Cool Tune Rico, and the 1 Cool Tune mix as well. The purpose of these cards is essentially to give you a high quality push going not only first, but second as well. Synchro Overtake is going to allow you to board break by getting you access to both of the Cool Tune graveyard effects, plus an RS on field as well. So the concept here is making the deck stronger going second, while also giving you better plays into Perulia going first, because pure Red Dragon Archfiend just gets bodied by Perulia. So you can kind of see what I mean when I say this build is focused on your card quality and just makes it it better all round. There's no complex combos or anything where Red Dragon Archfiend will bridge into the Cool Toon or into the Albaz engine. It's essentially just giving you diversity in your 5-card hand and additional lines of play to play around different things. A lot of the lists I have seen in the Discord cuts down on the starters further, but honestly, I don't really want to cut down anymore on the starters. But I suppose that can all come down to personal preference. Now, while also playing the Cool Toon engine, I don't really think you should be playing Dominus Spark in this build. You can, but there's just too many conflicts there that make it a little too awkward. So I've gone for this engine lineup. While Synchro Overtake basically counts as a board breaker or non-engine, the rest of the deck is purely non-engine. So we have, of course, our Bestials, the Lubellion, the Magna, and the Druis Worm, of course, because it's searchable. And then we have our 3 copies of Harmonia, 3 copies of Fuelos, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, and 3 copies of Dominus Impulse because there's no conflict here. I guess it can conflict with the Ecclesia, but you can still at least special summon the Ecclesia, and it does conflict with the Lubellion, but most of the time you're siding out Lubellion going second anyway, and it doesn't matter going first, so there's no real conflict there. It does also conflict with the mix, but that doesn't matter because you can just summon Rico with the Overtake and get into the RS anyway. But yeah, that is the 40 card list. Getting into the extra deck, we have our copy of Red Rising Dragon, the Crimson Blade and the Zalin, Crimson King and Red Dragon Archfiend, Abyss and Dispater. All pretty standard here, but of course Albaz locks us to level 8, so we need more of a focus on the level 8 synchros in our extra deck, meaning we have to play a Scarlight and a Draco Berserker as well. Next up, we have 1 copy of Albion the Branded Dragon and Titaniclad to fulfill the requirements for both Albaz and the Fallen and the Virtuous. This could be an Alba Lunatis if you want to have that jump scare where you fuse away your opponent's board, but Titaniclad is also good because it allows you to get back into your engine from the Fallen and the Virtuous. For the Cool Toon Synchros, we have 1 copy of Remix, typically for going first so that we can tag out on our opponent's turn and get the graveyard effect on Mix and Rico. And then of course we synchro into the RS. You could just go straight into the RS going first if you want to play around something like Spark or whatever, but typically you will just be going into Remix when you go first. Then we have our Harmonia targets, 1 copy of Malong, and I am playing the Lulu Lilith because I just like Harmonia getting us to the engine. Lulu can summon Incredible Ecclesia from the deck, which of course is a very strong push, although both of these do conflict with Impulse, so you just have to be aware of that. But yeah, that's the deck list. Let's get into some combos. Alright, so like I said, no dedicated, super complicated combos or anything. There's only going to be 2 combos in this video, and they are going to be in the spreadsheet that's linked below in the description. This one is going to be the normal summon combo. This works with either Ecclesia or normal summon Albaz, and so here we're going to normal summon Ecclesia and activate her effect. That's going to summon out the Albaz from the deck. Albaz effect will summon back the Ecclesia, and we can synchro. Into the Crimson King effect, we'll grab the Power Vice Dragon and activate the Power Vice to special summon. Effect, we add the Vision Resonator. If you watched the Centurion video, this is basically the exact same combo as normal summon Trudea or Primera. So we special summon the Vision and synchro with the Power Vice into the Crimson Blade Dragon. Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. We're going to grab a Crimson Gaia and the Bestial Lubellion. We'll activate Gaia and its effect, adding the Darkness Resonator, and then activate Darkness to special summon itself. Effects giving us an additional normal, and then synchro into the Bestial Dispater. We'll activate Lubellion, adding Bestial Magna, and then activate Magna, banishing Darkness from graveyard to special summon itself. Effect on summon, we'll go Dispater, summon back the Darkness, and then Darkness to make itself level 1, allowing us to synchro with the Crimson King into the Abyss. We can then tribute Magna to summon back Lubellion and activate Lubellion's effect to place a target if we side one in, like Branded Beast. Then go to the end phase, resolve Magna, adding the Harmonia to hand. So that's the normal summon combo. Let's get into the special summon Albaz combo where we are locked to level 8s. Okay, let's say the only starter we open is Fallen of the White Dragon. If we were to normal summon Fallen and it gets hit with an Imperm or an Ash, we just have to pass turn with absolutely nothing here. Which is why the majority of the time you want to activate its effect in hand, sending the Albion to graveyard to special summon it. This way, if it gets hit by an Ash or Imperm, we're still going to get the Albion in the end phase for a guaranteed interruption. Assuming we don't get interrupted though, we'll go Fallen of the White Dragon effect to summon out the Ecclesia and synchro into the Crimson King. Crimson King effect, we'll add the Power Vice Dragon. Effect of Power Vice to special summon, and effect to search, we'll add the Soul Resonator. We'll then use our normal on Soul and activate Soul's effect to add the Boner from the deck, and synchro into the Draco Berserker because we're only locked to dark synchros at this point. And then with the bone, we can activate its effect pitching a card from hand or the Crimson King if our hand is full of hand traps to special summon itself. And then we can go effect, target itself, sending Vision to grave to increase its level to 5. Vision effect will activate, adding the Crimson Gaia. We'll activate Crimson Gaia and its effects to grab the Rumbling, set the Rumbling, and proceed to the end phase, where Albion will trigger, setting the Fallen and the Virtuous, and then we'll get our incredible Ecclesia back to hand for follow-up as well. It's not an incredibly high ceiling or anything, but it is a deceptively strong board. Of course, we have the Fallen and the Virtuous and the Draco Berserker, alongside the Rumbling with the Crimson King, with our 4 other hand traps in hand most likely. So yeah, those are the only real combos that you need to know. The difficulty in piloting this deck is the sequencing. So when you draw a hand, like let's say Synchro Overtake, we have Impulse and Ash here, alongside the Fallen of the White Dragon and Power Vice Dragon, we have all 3 different engines here. What on earth do we do? How do we sequence this? We want to try and get full value out of all of our cards in hand here, so always we're going to start with the Power Vice Dragon here and its effect to search. If this gets stopped, we can activate Synchro Overtake to summon the Cool Tune Rico, which is a level 3 tuner. We can then synchro those 2 into the Crimson King, or just make a remix. On the other hand, if our Red Dragon Archfiend plays are actually resolving, we don't want to lock ourselves out of the potential from the other engines in our hand. An example being, if we activate Red Rising Dragon, we're basically locked out of the Cool Tune plays. Overtake would just be a tuner extender at that point for the Red Dragon Archfiend plays. Additionally, if we say special summon Bone Archfiend, we're not going to be able to summon Draco Berserker off of the Fallen of the White Dragon. So there's a lot of options, a lot can go wrong, while at the same time there's plenty of different ways to extend. So assuming everything resolves here, we're going to go Power Vice Dragon to add the Darkness Resonator. In this situation, I'm going to use the Red Dragon Archfiend plays to set up an anti-Nibiru while not locking us to Dark Dragon Synchros, allowing us to continue playing with the Overtake and the White Albaz. So we'll go Effect of Darkness to Special Summon, Effect to gain an additional normal summon, and then synchro these 2 into the Crimson King. We'll go Crimson King effect, adding the Soul Resonator, and then use our additional normal summon on the Soul. Effect of Soul, we'll add the Boner, and then use our actual normal summon on Bone. With Bone's effect, we're going to decrease its level to 3 by dumping the Vision Resonator, and then Vision's effect will activate, adding Crimson Gaia. We'll synchro these 2 into the Red Rising Dragon, but we're not going to activate its effect so that we're not locked. We'll activate Crimson Gaia and its effect, adding the Crimson Call, and then activate Crimson Call, grabbing the Synchron Resonator. Special summon Synchron, and synchro into the Zalin, where Synchron will trigger, adding back Vision. So here we're only locked to Dark Synchros, and we still have access to the Overtake and the Albaz engines, while being insulated from things like Hydraulis Harmonia and Nibiru. Before we lock ourselves to 8s with the Albaz package, we're going to activate Synchro Overtake, revealing RS to summon a Rico from the deck. Rico will activate, grabbing a Cool Tune Mix, and then we can just synchro the mix in hand with the Rico for a remix, and then we can activate our Fallen of the White Dragon in hand, sending Albion to grave to special summon itself and effect. We grab the Ecclesia and synchro these 2 into the Draco Berserker. We go to the end phase, Ecclesia comes back to hand, and we activate our Albion to set the Fallen and the Virtuous here. So this is a pretty strong board that we were able to set up with a good deal of resilience, and even something like Dark Ruler No More we can stop here because we can just chain the Fallen and the Virtuous and then chain the Zalin. I think it would take a lot of practice to recognize all of these different kind of sequences you can do to play around a bunch of different cards, but it's definitely worth it because this is much stronger than just pure Red Dragon Archfiend. So let's take it into an actual game, man. Let's play some Blazing Dominion format. Okay, so here we have a game against Doom Z. Once again, we are just playing with main decks. There's no side decks or anything, and we do win the dice roll, so we are getting to go first. Now, this game is actually a good example of understanding your deck. So the only starter I open in this hand is Power Vice Dragon. I open Lubalian and 3 other hand traps. If I get hand trapped on Vice, I basically have to pass turn, but because Vice is so easy to extend from, people are unlikely to actually hand trap Power Vice, and then from there, you're able to add Soul Resonator, which splits your line into 2 different searches, allowing you to then play through 1 hand trap. So we search for the Boner and then synchro into the Crimson King, where Ethan drops an Ash Blossom. If he ashed the Soul, it would have hurt and forced us into a half board, but Ash on the Crimson King, he's basically just hand looped himself for 1. We proceed to special summon Bone by pitching a Fuwalos and then go Bone effect target itself, dumping Vision to increase its level to 5. Vision then triggers and we add the Crimson Gaia. We activate the Crimson Gaia and its effect to search for the Crimson Call. Because we have the Crimson King on field, Crimson Call is going to be able to search the deck for a Synchron Resonator, which we can then special summon and synchro with the level 5 Bone into the Red Rising. Chainlink 1 Red Rising is going to summon back the Synchron, Chainlink 2 Synchron is going to add back the Vision. Now here you would typically go into the Crimson Blade Dragon, but because we already have Lubellion in hand, it gets a little bit weird. We activate Lubellion to search for Magna while I'm trying to think of what to do, and then I decide to synchro into the Zalin just as a nice little endboard piece. I choose not to activate the Synchron because the only target left is Soul in Graveyard and I want to keep that in the grave for the destruction protection, so we activate Magna, banishing Synchron to summon itself, tribute it to summon back the Lubellion, and then special summon the Vision to synchro into the Bestial Dispatter. At this point I realize I probably should have activated the Synchron to add back the Soul because we're not going to end with the Crimson King on field anyway. He doesn't have Nibiru. We summon back the Synchron with the Dispatter and synchro into the Abyss, where Synchron triggers once again, adding back the Vision. We set our Impulse and proceed to the end phase where we resolve Magna, adding Druis Worm because we already have Harmonia in hand, and Druis Worm is going to make the Zalin a lot more triggerable. Anyway, over to Ethan's turn. He starts by activating the Power Patron Portal Terminus, which I do chain Abyss to negate that, which I do think is incorrect. On its own, it's not really doing anything. It just gets you to the cards that are threats, so you would just want to negate the threats. For example, here we get a Zagredo scaled on us, and we no longer have our Abyss to negate it, so it's going to resolve just popping our Zalin. On resolution here, we have chain 1 Elara and chain 2 Zagredo, so we're going to set a Speller Trap and then add a Speller Trap. Here we see Ethan choose to set Doomsday Raiders and add a Doomsday Change. He then proceeds to flip the Doomsday Raiders and activate its effect to pop 1 in hand and summon from deck. So we are going to chain the Impulse here. We don't have any traps in grave, so it's not going to destroy Raiders, it's just going to sit there on the field. Ethan then normal summons Elara, no effect because he's already used the one in graveyard, and on resolution we're going to activate Druis, banishing the other one in graveyard so that we have the monster negate on Dispatter live. We see Doomsday Change get activated, which is going to destroy the new equip spell Adastrea from the deck, and Adastrea is going to activate in grave to equip itself to the Elara, burning him for 400. He then activates the effect of Elara to rank up, and here we chain the Harmonia in hand, which is going to be GG. It was close, but we did also have the Dispatter negate, so we were chilling. Game 2, I would say let's see how the deck performs going second, but there's not really much to perform against because Ethan just sets 1 and passes turn. I don't know if Doomsday has consistency issues. I know it doesn't have a lot of non-engine, but yeah, it's over to us. Our hand isn't great either. We start with normal summon Soul, which gets hit with an Ash Blossom. I think I have Vision and Darkness in hand, so my only form of extension here is Fallen of the White Dragon, pitching the Albion to special summon itself, and effect on summon is going to bring out the incredible Ecclesia, where on resolution we're met with a Fallen and the Virtuous, removing the non-tuner. Just classic synchro deck problems, man. I could summon another Albaz from the deck with Ecclesia, but because we're locked to level 8s now, that doesn't really do anything. I set a Dead Ruler's Rumbling and then punch Ethan for 2k before going to the end phase where we're both able to trigger our Albions, setting the Fallen and the Virtuous each. Back over to Ethan, he top decks a Fuwalos. Unlucky, bro. We draw for turn and then go into the main phase and activate Ecclesia's effect to summon out an Albaz from the deck, and then Albaz is once again going to bring back out the Ecclesia. Once again, the Fallen and the Virtuous gets activated, removing the non-tuner. How annoying, bro. From there, I attempt to activate the Fallen and the Virtuous, sending a Titaniclad from extra deck to grave for cost to attempt to reborn the Albaz once again, but we get hit with a Ghost Bell. Well, we better hope our top deck does something, but it was a Crimson Gaia. We do have one final push. We activate the effect of Crimson Gaia. Ethan chooses not to Ash, I think because he wants to resolve his Fuwalos and actually draw into Engine, but that was a big mistake because we add Power Vice and Tribute Summon the Power Vice. It doesn't get its effect on Tribute Summon, unlike Elf Note Regina, which is so annoying. On res, we get hit with a Fuwalos, which is totally fine because he only has 6,000 life points and Doomsday isn't exactly known for drawing into a lot of non-engine, so we just go for it. We activate Crimson King. He chains the Ash, which is just game on the spot because we can chain it to summon out a 6k attack Red Dragon Archfiend and punch for game. We wanted an actual game though, so we are going to go into a game 3. Alright, going second once again here. The only hand trap I actually draw is Dominus Impulse. We draw like 3 bricks plus a Soul Resonator, so like we're cooked from the start. Ethan leads with a copy of Terminus, dumping Zagredo and adding Vidrium, also known as Big Peepee. He then proceeds to scale the Vidrium and activate its effect to summon summon back the Zigredo, and here we basically just have to Impulse. If we don't, he just gets massive advantage and is able to turbo out an early Varudris, so it's literally Impulse and pray. He then normal summons Amalth and searches for another copy of Zigredo. Scaling the Zigredo, he doesn't bother with the effect, it's just fodder for the Drastea in hand, which is going to pop the Zigredo, summon itself, and attach the Doomdirg from the deck. This of course triggers the Zigredo to search a spell or trap, and he searches for the Adastrea equip spell, which he then just immediately equips to the Amalth, and uses Amalth to rank up into the Deactoris, and then ranks up into the new Grifflario. From here he activates the Grifflario effect, detaching the Adastrea to search for the Doomsday Raiders. He's going to activate the Raiders and use it to pop a card and summon from deck, so he's going to pop the Grifflario and summon out a copy of Alara, giving us Chainlink 1 Alara to set a spell or trap, and Chainlink 2 Grifflario to summon out another copy of Alara. Doomsday Change gets set to the field, and then we're going to overlay both copies of Alara into the Ga Magician, which can summon back the rank 4, the Deactoris, giving you 2 rank 4s on the field. That is a F0 Utopic Future, which can then be ranked up into the Utopic Draco Future, the Monster Negate, and a Yoink. Alternatively, you could go for the Captain Sargas line, which searches Regulus, but Regulus is another brick in the deck. Anyway, Doomsday Change is activated, and the Doomdirg effect of Drastea is chained to pop the Doomsday Change. So we destroy Doomsday Destruction from deck, and on resolution, it's chain 1 Doomsday Change to add back Destruction, and chain 2 Destruction to equip the Doomsday Power Patron from the deck. He then uses the Destrea effect to rank up into the Drastrius on his own turn, which I think is correct. It's less interruptions, but it means your board loses a lot less to Forbidden Droplet. He passes it over to us where we top deck an Ash. We then just have to lead with normal summon Soul Resonator, and Doomsday Destruction is going to get chained to that, which is basically just like Mistaken Arrest or Droll and Lockbird. Yeah, we just lose. We basically just get FTK'd by Doomsday Destruction and Cool Toon RS. It's so rough. Okay, so overall, what have we got for Albaz Cool Toon Red Dragon Archfiend? I will say this is the build I have the least amount of hours in, as I was letting the Discord focus on it while I explored Centurion. So they might have different opinions to me here. I'll link the Discord in the description if you want to get a more in-depth analysis of this variant. But yeah, first up, for the strengths, we have both Harmonia and Magnamut being able to get you to Engine. Magna, of course, searching for White Albaz, and Harmonia being able to dump Luluwa Lilith. Just like the Centurion build, I do enjoy having that versatility with the non-engine. Next up, the deck just has a lot more diverse lines of play, which essentially gives you more tools to help deal with whatever's thrown at you. If you get hit with Droll and Lockbird, Fallen of the White Dragon can get you to Fallen in the Virtuous plus Draco Berserker, or if you get hit with Perulia, you can go Synchro Overtake into a remix. Like I said in the Elf Note video, having options wins games, and here you have a lot more options than, say, Centurion or pure Red Dragon Archfiend. Between the Albaz and the Cool Toon mini engines, we've essentially added no extra bricks to the deck. Mix and Rico can be a little awkward to open, especially alongside like Ecclesia, but none of these cards are actual garnets that don't do anything by themselves. While I didn't include Dominus Spark in this list, you can, in theory, play both Impulse and Spark, which is a very strong lineup. Your overall card quality in this build is pretty good. We've added a bunch of cards that just have really strong independent pushes. None of them require a discard or anything like that, as opposed to something like Stand Up Centurion. And finally, Albaz is much less of a threat. If we can set up a remix with a Cool Toon engine, we can just pop a set Albaz, or if we end on like a Draco Berserker with the Albaz engine, that can't get contact fused. On the other side, looking at the weaknesses, I will say this deck is pretty difficult to play, especially going second with all the kind of locks and layering that you have to do. Because you're playing 3 different engines and there's some cards in there that are less desirable to draw than others, your hands are going to be very varied between games. So there's going to be a ton of different interactions that will come up that you'll have to essentially figure out on the fly, and that can be pretty mentally taxing. That's not really a weakness of the deck though, it's literally just skill issue. Get better, idiot. Generally, you're playing pure Red Dragon Archfiend, but better. So all the issues that were present for pure will also be present here, you'll just be more equipped to deal with them more often. You're basically relying on seeing the correct engine that counters whichever hand trap's thrown at you. For example, if you get drolled on Red Dragon Archfiend engine, then Synchro Overtake doesn't really do much. Or if you get hit with a Perulia but you don't draw Synchro Overtake, then you're still in a pretty rough position. It's similar to Centurion, where if you're playing the Centurion build and you don't draw any Centurion cards, then you lose to all the same cards as pure, except like Nibiru. But because you're able to play a larger Centurion engine than, say, an Albaz engine or a Cool Toon engine, you're more consistently going to be able to play through those hand traps. Finally, while this build has less of an issue than pure or Centurion going second, Going second is still pretty difficult. Sometimes you want to sequence your hand to play into a board a certain way, but your hand just doesn't allow for it. Sometimes you want to bait something with Albaz, but you don't want to use your normal summon, and at the same time you don't want to lock yourself to level 8s because then that'll turn off your synchro overtake. Going second is just generally pretty rough across the board with this deck, bro. That's why I was playing Super Poly in both Pure and Centurion, but I don't know if it's possible in this build because both of your mini engines require the extra deck space. I guess you could side out Remix or Zalin for a Super Poly target going second. Anyway, in terms of power level, I would put this build above Centurion, but both builds would still just be a regional deck. Between those two builds, personally, I would probably take Centurion to a regional rather than this build, but that's mostly because of the upcoming format. Just a Cooltoon RS on the board turns off both your Cooltoon engine and your Albaz engine. Centurion still struggles a bit, but you at least have a little bit more flexibility to play into it. We are, of course, still going to be taking all of these builds to locals, so maybe our opinion changes down the line. Next up, we finally take a look at Mitsurugi, so stay tuned for that.